Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. Hope everyone is doing well out there this morning and having a great start to your day, a great ending to your week, beginning to your weekend, whatever it may be for you folks out there. Got you some update information on what's going to happen weather-wise for your Friday, and of course, we will ooze a little bit into our next day, which will be Saturday for certain areas of the country, and we'll speak on that. Not a whole lot to speak on for today's weather. Now, tonight will be a different story as we will have a severe weather threat for Texas, especially maybe even areas of like western Oklahoma. So there will be a segment of the video for the south central U.S. discussing the details on that severe weather threat. A lot of high winds in certain areas of the country we'll talk on. Moisture still out west, a little bit of moisture in the northeast that we'll talk a little bit on, but a good portion of this video will be discussing the latest information on this big time storm system that will enter the west. We'll talk about the latest information that we have as far as impacts, rainfall, snow, winds, all those things, as a lot of people in California are gearing up for this powerful storm system that a lot of people have been talking about. And I thought that, hey, even though I don't speak as much as far as details on the western U.S., we need to talk about this. This is going to impact millions of people, so we definitely need to talk about it. And then, of course, we'll continue to give you updated information on this pattern change. And folks, I'm not going to shy away from it. I'm going to continue to talk about it at the end of every single video until there's something to legitimately track, and I think eventually there will be, especially as we get into next week around this time. I think we will be talking about some sort of storm system for someone. We're going to get detailed on that again, talk about it for you folks, and just keep the train rolling. So if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So the middle of the country continues to be very quiet. Now, that'll be different as we get into tonight, especially in the southern plains, south central U.S., where we will have a threat of severe weather for a large chunk of Texas. We'll speak on that, but it's quiet right now. So you can tell this is going to be more of a nighttime thing, as, even this morning, there's not really anything going on in Texas. We do have some moisture that you're waking up to, along the I-95 corridor in the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. Some rainy times in New York City. No snow, just rain. Rain falling across areas of New Jersey, Delaware. Snow has pretty much headed into New Brunswick at this point. And I will talk about Nova Scotia, Cape Breton Islands, Newfoundland. So I know that I have not talked heavily on my folks in Canada, Atlantic Canada, which I do talk on sometimes, but we will have a segment for that also. So we'll speak on how Nova Scotia could get a lot of snow over the weekend pretty much. So a little bit of moisture showing up down in Florida. I don't know how much is hitting the ground, but there is scattered moisture out west, but nothing too crazy or anything like that. But there is definitely higher elevation snow, lower elevation rain. Storm Prediction Center today, this will be the heavy topic for today's portion of the video. There's a level 2 out of 5 risk, and this has even got even bigger, all the way to Abilene now, almost to Wichita Falls, all the way down to San Antonio. All the way pretty much down into south central sections of Texas. We got a marginal risk that extends pretty much from the coastline of Texas all the way to almost Midland, Fort Stockton, all the way up to Woodward, Oklahoma. And this is really driven off a hail threat. So, there is a tornado risk with this, which has actually gotten larger. Remember, if we tuned into yesterday's videos, it was just confined to this area of Texas. Now this is expanded all the way to almost Wichita Falls, all the way into the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So we do have, in this green area, a 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. Wind threat, just a 5% risk, but the hail threat today is probably the largest threat as far as a severe weather risk. We do have that 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger within 25 miles in a given location. So please be aware of some big hailers today in Texas. We talked about the ingredients, so really what's driving this. We won't get as detailed on that in this video, just kind of give you the straightforward information. But the ingredients do support hail in this kind of setup. So as far as the excessive rainfall outlook, this will be a heavy portion of the videos over the next couple of days, as we are going to have a big flooding threat in areas of California. But today, just a marginal risk. There's at least a 5% risk of flash flood guidance being met. So even though we got moisture crossing Texas, Oklahoma into Louisiana for tomorrow morning, we don't think this is going to be a big time flooding risk. Watches, warnings, advisories dealing with that fog across the northern portion of the lower 48. A lot of winter alerts in the purple, winter weather advisories, the pinks, winter storm warnings, and you do have winter storm watches issued for south of the Denver metro area, where several inches of snow is possible, but around the Denver area, not as much. We'll talk about that here in a second. We got pretty detailed on that in last night's video. High wind watches up for more of this brown color, more of the mustard color right here. High wind warnings. So winds are already picking up here in southwest Texas. They will continue to pick up even in the lower elevations as we get later into this evening, where our storm system will move in, and that's ultimately what forces all these storms to fire up in Texas. I mean, the winds will be pushing hurricane force winds, a 70, 75, 80 miles per hour wind gust in southwest Texas later today. We do have high wind warnings already up for San Francisco. Really points south into down into Santa Barbara. I think this area between San Francisco and Santa Barbara is going to be the highest hit area with this next storm system that really moves in. But flood watches are up all the way down from LA all the way down to San Diego when winter storm warnings are continuing for the Sierra Nevada. So that's what's going on. The central and eastern U.S. is pretty quiet. We've kind of quieted down, and there's not a whole lot going on right now. I do think that's going to change though. Southeast, quiet day expected. Nothing really going on. Enjoy your day. It's going to warm up for a lot of people. My neck of the woods might get close to 70 degrees today. I can appreciate a 70-degree day in winter as long as it isn't the end of winter. You folks know, as I spoke on last night's video, I'm a big winter weather fan. So, to me, February is still winter weather month. Once we get into March, that's when my mindset really shifts to spring. But, February, still winter in my eyes. So, Southeast, quiet day. This evening, getting into the overnight hours. Now, you do see the rain entering your screen here on this side. This is our storms moving out of Texas into Louisiana, Arkansas. And as we are waking up for our Saturday morning, we're waking up to some stormy times entering western Louisiana. Just plain rain up here, probably in Arkansas, but we will have a line of storms making their way through eastern Texas. We'll talk more on that here in a second. The immediate southeast, though, folks, is quiet between now and the next 24 hours. The Northeast, dealing with some pesky showers out there to kickstart your Friday morning, little Friday morning blues, but it is Friday, so I don't think we're feeling very blue out there. But, we get into the afternoon, still dealing with just some lingering showers, light rain along the Delmarva, some light sprinkles, New Jersey, and then maybe some snow flurries, snow showers are possible in the Adirondacks, maybe. Not the Adirondacks, but maybe in the Adirondacks, but really the Catskills, like the Poconos, maybe in the Berkshires, you guys could get some snow showers possible. And as we get into this evening, we will watch some lingering moisture around the Boston area. Could deliver maybe a mixture of rain or snow, or either one or the other, as this moisture kind of trails off. And then, as we're waking up for our Saturday morning, maybe some snow showers could kind of whiplash into the Cape Cod region, Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard. Heck, they might even make it to Boston as we're waking up for a Saturday morning. Not a big deal at all. South Central U.S., this is where our most active weather will be, but this will be mainly for tonight. We'll start off this morning, not a whole lot going on. Some moisture does start to enter, sections of southeast Colorado, the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas. Some showers kind of making their way through central Texas. I think there's a lot of storm chasers meeting in the Dallas-Fort Worth area today. I think they call it Summit or something. But, people are wild now a little bit about the fact that there's going to be storms, and they're all storm chasers. So it is funny how things work. But some showers, some heavier rain that could make their way, later this afternoon, this evening through the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But these down here, these storms are really the ones we watch. But we'll kind of re-zoom into this area here in a second. I do want to talk about New Mexico and Colorado. There's a snow starting in the higher elevations of those two states. I don't think really the big winter storm side of this will start until we get into our Saturday. But as you can tell, snow begins to fall kind of south of Denver along the southern flank of the Front Range, snow falling in the Rockies. And let's go on and zoom in down to Texas. So let's start off as around 3 p.m. Texas time, Central Time. There's those, first initial kind of burst of heavier rain. Could get a rumble of thunder with this. But it's these storms down here to get going that could produce some big hail later this evening. This is around 6, 7 p.m., so the sun is setting. These could be some big storms that could produce some large hail. I would not be surprised one bit we get pictures out of this area San Antonio, really, I would say west of San Antonio. San Angelo is the name I was thinking. You could get some storms around this, maybe down here to just the hill country of Texas needs to watch out for these big storms initially. But I think quickly they do develop into more of a linear type look, meaning a line of storms 8 to 9 p.m. Could get some gusty winds with this, and you still need to watch with any of these storms because there will be some kinematics meaning some favorable wind profiles aloft to support some spinning in the atmosphere. So we will watch these storms for an embedded tornado or two. But these continue, they'll kind of branch off, burst of heavier rain, showers and storms overnight. We're getting to like 11 p.m. midnight tonight. Heavy rain begins to, move and take over most of southwest Oklahoma. We're continuing to get these showers and storms that are kind of making its way through. Could get, a line of storms that makes its way through basically all of eastern Texas. And these could be some intense storms, and you still got to watch out down here for a tornado threat, a nocturnal tornado threat. This is about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And then these storms, I think you're going to it's probably going to be a pretty loud morning in Houston tomorrow morning as these storms are kind of making their way through. These could be intense. I would not be surprised, not one person to say you heard it here first, because I try to take more of a humble take with what I speak on with weather, but I do think it's going to be a pretty active morning along the Texas coastline tomorrow morning. I really do. So definitely be aware of that. And then these storms start to move, pretty much into Louisiana. So, winds. I do want to mention this. It's already windy in areas of southeast New Mexico, southwest Texas, but the winds will, be very strong. As we are starting to get into like the overnight hours into tomorrow, really, this is when the winds, this turns into an all-out windstorm in southwest sections of Texas and southeast New Mexico. Winds are gusting to, and this is the National Weather Service, winds are gusting to 50, 60, even 65, 70 miles per hour, especially in these higher mountain peaks here in southwest Texas. And winds will, begin to get pretty breezy here in San Angelo all the way to San Antonio and everybody in between. Midland, the winds will get gusty, but man, if you live in this area, big time windstorm moving in. You got high wind warnings for a reason, and I really think the winds really pick up as we get into tomorrow afternoon. So definitely be weather aware tonight in Texas. Definitely some boomers coming in. But we get into the north central U.S. Another quiet day up here. It's been, the winter has been non-existent in Minnesota. It's what's wild is Minnesota has had a non-existent winter, but you go down one state south of you folks in Iowa, which has been quiet in Iowa for a few weeks now, but Iowa picked up a ton of snow in a relatively short amount of time in the span of a few weeks. But you guys, I'm hearing that certain areas of Iowa is actually above schedule in snow just because you got a few storms back to back to back. But you go up to, head up the road to Minneapolis and Minnesota. I don't even think you guys have not even got 10 inches of snow this winter. So it's pretty wild to think about. But you keep on going here. You're getting into this evening. Hearing my girls in the background, so it's distracting me. And then you start to get into the overnight hours. Look at the heavy rain beginning to move in to Nebraska, southern Nebraska, southwest Nebraska. And some rain in Kansas also into the overnight hours. But there's no cold air involved, so this is just good old rain. And then we take it all the way into Saturday morning and you're waking up to rain in central Nebraska and down here in Kansas too. A little bit of rain in southwest South Dakota. So the moisture out west, you got waves of moisture. Nothing really congealed together unless you're in the Rockies. Utah, eastern and northeastern sections, Nevada, Idaho, getting into western Colorado, the southwest, Arizona, New Mexico. Higher elevation snow, lower elevation rains, the common theme. Not a super cold storm, so, for the most part, Salt Lake City is going to see rain. Just the lower favorite areas that just normally see rain are going to see rain in this setup. Not a very cold storm at all. And this continues, just kind of whisper around out here, leads to our storm in Texas. And we just continue to get a moist feed into the West Coast where we just get kind of rounds of isolated downpours into the California coastline. I think the further south you get, the less you'll see that. But, western Washington, western Oregon, and then northern and central California, just kind of rounds of heavier burst of rain. And then as they kind of make their way into those higher elevations, you'll get bursts of snow. But nothing really congealed together. But here comes a gnarly looking spin right into here. And as you can tell, as you get into our Saturday, it starts to change. This is when a lot of moisture begins to make its way in late morning tomorrow morning, and we'll speak on this here in a second. But I mean, look at all this snow kind of building and falling up here in western Montana, Idaho. Look at this snow starting to, and this is getting into Saturday, snow is starting to fall in Wyoming as we are getting into tomorrow evening. So a snowfall between now and Saturday evening. You can see where the lower elevations ain't going to get anything. Higher elevations will get several inches of snow to maybe a foot. Colorado looks like it's going to hit pretty good. You know, we take a closer look at, let's say, Colorado, and Denver, not really going for anything. You go about an hour south of Denver, hour or two south, a few to several inches of snow is possible. You have winter storm watches in this little extension right here, the kind of the foothill regions of central Colorado, right up against the Front Range. So along the Front Range, definitely going to get several inches to over a foot, depending on where you are. So temperatures, very warm, all the way up into southeast Nebraska. 60s. I mean, and everybody in this area right in here, the South, the Mid-South, up the Mississippi Valley. Temperatures in the 60s. I mean, and even these areas where it just shows 60s, they're probably going to be widespread low 70s. Look at South Texas in the 80s. I mean, and even up here for our folks in the northern section of the country, this is above average temperature-wise for February 2nd standards. We go out west, it's still above average. It's been some nice days up in Montana. It's just warm everywhere. It's warmer than average everywhere. I mean, there might be some cooler than average temperatures in California just because of cloudiness and moisture. But that's about it. It's been pretty much above average out here too. I think that will change here in the coming days though. So let's talk about this storm system moving in. We'll kind of start off where we left off around Saturday morning, tomorrow morning. And here it comes. This is around midnight, for example, tomorrow night. And look at all this green, the blues and the higher elevations, and all this moisture begins to push in. It's the latest European. We start to get into Sunday morning. Rain just fire hosing, just an atmospheric river of moisture just going right into California as the specific storm impacts your weather. I think that it doesn't really get bad into like Los Angeles, San Diego until you get deeper into your Sunday night, into your Monday, really. And as we get into that Sunday night, Monday period, I think that this kind of fire hose of moisture begins to shift south into our folks here in Southern California. And this is when you guys start to get hit really hard here. And then we get into Tuesday morning, and you still just continue just to get waves of moisture. So, to kind of back this up, do that over again. Saturday night, I think this is going to hit Central California pretty hard, like San Francisco down to Santa Barbara. You're still going to get moisture down into LA, but I think as we get late into our Sunday, this is when it really shifts and starts hitting down the coast in California. Higher elevation snow, lower elevation just heavy rain, just a fire hose of rain right into this region. So, the excessive rainfall outlook is already highlighting Sunday, saying that this region basically from, and I don't pretend to know every single area out here, but I know the household names of the big cities. San Francisco for Sunday has a slight risk, which means at least a 15% risk of flash flooding. But we head on down to the south, and basically between LA, through really Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, all the way up into this region, right into here. Certainly this region right in here is going to have that 40% chance of flash flood guidance being met. So this is what we worry about right in here. And then we go to a day 4, and sure enough, this, like we mentioned, as we get more so into our Sunday night, Monday, the threat begins to shift into the big city of LA. Santa Barbara down to LA. San Diego, you're on the south end of the worst flooding. I think you might get saved from the worst of this. I think once you get into LA, up north, you really got to watch Sunday night to Monday for these areas. You have a 40% risk of flash flood guidance being met in this region. So flooding is going to be a big threat in these areas. And then as we get into our Tuesday, it begins to shift a little bit further south and just a little bit further east in general into the southwest. Rainfall between now and about Wednesday morning. San Francisco, a few inches of rain. You get south of San Francisco, into these regions, 4, 5, 6, 7 inches of rain is possible between San Francisco all the way down to LA. And then we start to, let's make sure we got the right frames pulled up. Let's go down to the southern sections of California. San Diego right in here, going for 2, 3 inches of rain. This is the blend of all models. It could be underdone here. I like to show this. I don't like to show the models that show the most amount of rain. Some people just do that just for a fear tactic. But you go up to the roads to like LA, and and the common theme around LA is about 4, 5, 6. Well, I would say about 5 to 7 inches of rain. And that's a lot of rain for you folks. So go on and prepare. This is going to be some high impacts as far as rainfall. It winds, this is the blend of all models. And this only takes us out till Sunday evening. But San Francisco, point south, 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts are possible. This isn't sustained. You're not going to get just all out 50 mile per hour wind gusts for a sustained amount of time. This is just going to be your predicted high end wind gust. But you head on down the road, you get down to these regions, basically between San Francisco and Santa Barbara. Between now and I would say, Sunday evening, this is when the highest winds are going to occur in this area right into here. Anywhere from 40 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. And you go down to Southern California, and this only goes out to. So let's see if we can look at the blend of all models here. Let's go a little bit further out here, and we'll go all the way, and this is pretty much takes us through the length of this storm. San Diego only going for about 25, 35 mile per hour wind gusts are possible. You get up to LA though, 40, maybe at 50 mile per hour wind gusts are possible into this region. Higher peaks obviously going to experience more high-end wind gusts. And, to kind of jump back into this region and to look at California, and you look at those predicted snowfall totals from the blend of all models. I mean, the Sierra Nevada is just going to get absolutely slammed with blizzard-like conditions and just feet of snow. So this is definitely, when you get these atmospheric river setups in the winter, this is all snow in the Sierra Nevada. So, moving past this, I do want to show my folks in Canada some love here. It's already snowing in places like New Brunswick, even northern Nova Scotia this morning, maybe even some snow flying around in Newfoundland. But as we continue to move forward here, we start to get into this afternoon. Some heavy snow will begin to fall. There's a low to your south, enough cold air, certainly in Nova Scotia, Cape Breton Island. You guys will start to see a good bit of snow. And as we start to get into our nighttime hours, very heavy snow is going to fall across, especially central to eastern Nova Scotia and the Cape Breton Island here. And I mean, guys, this is going to be some heavy snow. Definitely stay tuned to your locals out here, but I do want to show, we take it all the way into Saturday morning. This storm is still going. It's still going into Saturday evening. I do think you're going to get a little snow into New Brunswick for most of the area, but this is a long duration storm, and then it gets going again Sunday morning as kind of another low kind of redevelops, kind of gets trapped down here. And basically, this is that 50-50 low we were talking about, where energy just keeps pinwheeling around this low. And you guys are going to get crushed in Nova Scotia with a ton of snow. Feet of snow, folks. And I mean, this is Sunday morning. This is continuing. And then I think New Brunswick is going to get something maybe getting into Sunday night, Monday morning sometime. Not New Brunswick. I'm sorry, Newfoundland. All right. And definitely some snowy times for you folks. And, we can just take a look at the European. This really isn't a forecast. It's just one model output. I know y'all measure in centimeters up here. So, the European's saying, hey, eastern Nova Scotia and the Cape Breton Island, anywhere from 60 to as high as 80 centimeters of snow. Quick measurement. What is that? Like a foot, 2 foot, 2.5 feet of snow in these areas, and measurements in feet and inches. So, that's a lot. You're getting a lot in Newfoundland too. So this is a lot of snow in these regions. You guys are going to get hit hard from this. So definitely be aware of that. Let's give you some updated information on this pattern change. So not a whole lot has changed. What we do know, guys, is you're looking on your screen. The blues on your screen's lower pressure, storminess, coolness, cooler than average temperatures for the most part. Now, this is at 500 millibars, so we don't live at 500 millibars, which is several thousand feet up in the air. So sometimes it takes a while for the actual surface to reflect what those blue blobs on the screen are showing. So just because you see this intense blues doesn't mean it's like 20 degrees below average. That's not necessarily what it means. There's a lot more that goes into this than what you see on the screen. But in general, it can be what that means. It can symbolize below average temperatures. So we know that it's going to warm up probably at the end of next week, especially across the east and central U.S. We think we're probably going to get temperatures getting into the upper 60s, low 70s across the south. And you're just going to continue just to be, if you're a winter weather fan and you live in the east, especially the northern portion of the East Great Lakes region and Northeast, continue to be bummed out because well above averages temperatures are going to be in place. What we do know is we have a moving pattern, and really what that means is no real pattern is going to stay in one spot. So this ridging begins to move on out, and then we introduce a new pattern 9-10 days out from right now. And what you see here is those intense blues are kind of being replaced by ridging. So you're starting to get a ridge of showing up over the Pacific and the northwestern section of the lower 48 up into Western Canada. And then you're getting this blue showing up over the middle of the country. This is probably some sort of storm system as the pattern transitions. So what happens is you get rid of all those, that ridging, those warmer looking colors, the reds, which indicates ridging and just more stable conditions. And then it's replaced by blue in the central and eastern U.S. I think that this blue, which like I said, indicates lower pressure, is probably going to be in the form of some sort of pattern starting storm system. It could be 1 to 2 storm systems. And if you look back to January, that's kind of what happened when we got that big cold shot of air that really slammed the Mid-South and areas of the country. It got kickstarted by 1 or 2 large, big-time cutting systems that kind of moved across the Midwest. If you don't remember that, it was only a month ago, and dang, yeah, that would stink if you don't remember it, because it really oozes into what we're talking about here. Because it's kind of the same repeating pattern. It really is, except this one coming up has staying power. It really does. But you continue to keep this moving. I think we're going to get some sort of storm system in the eastern U.S., but then the real pattern sets up and we start to get mid-month, the 13th, 14th, 15th. We get this tall spiking ridge over this region. I think initially you're not going to have a lot of energy down here. I think you can see the Pacific energy, basically the southern stream, getting going, getting excited down here, starting to extend down here. But initially, this is going to be driven by probably 1 to 2 storm systems that are probably going to cut, I think, kind of like this. All right, so my folks in the southeast, even maybe the southern sections of the mid-Atlantic might not score from this, but you could get a big storm system about mid-month. And folks, when I say you could, that doesn't mean Mitch is saying you're going to get a major winter storm in Delaware or Pennsylvania or something. I think when people hear me say that, and I can read the comments and tell that's what people are getting from what I'm saying, that doesn't mean that Mitch is forecasting a major winter storm in the middle of the month. That's not what I'm saying, guys. It isn't. I'm just saying could. That's why I say this is not a forecast. It could potentially happen. And I know it might get irritating me saying potentially a ton, but until we actually start to see this is just Mitch kind of giving his ideas on what could potentially happen. It's not a forecast. Now, will I tell you that my confidence is high on something? I will. And I like the idea of this, but that doesn't mean it's going to actually happen. But as this pattern is kind of transitioning to getting to where it's going to be, you're probably going to have some sort of storm system or two that cuts across the country. That's not going to be the storm for the South. But you keep this going. All right, there it is. Kind of what I'm seeing here is you see this extension of blue right in here. That indicates energy, some sort of energy dropping down. Reinforcing shot of cold air. And folks, by the time you get into the morning of the 15th, and I'm not saying this is exact science, the exact time frame, what you're seeing here, and let's go on and just take it all the way out to the morning of the 16th, is a beautiful pattern. You're probably at this point, I would say you probably have already had some sort of storm system. Is that going to be a foot of snow on New York City? I don't know. Could it be another system that only brings snow to the interior Northeast or the Great Lakes region? I don't know. But at this point, I think you're already dealing with some sort of storm system. You got a tall spiking ridge right in here. Okay, the ridge building all the way up into here. Think of this blue line as right around where the jet will be. And then you got this trough that's digging all the way down into here. Okay. And you're probably getting pieces of energy kind of coming down into here. Maybe some Pacific energy, Southern Stream energy trying to come down here and enter the picture also. And I mean, you're probably going to get some sort of low into here, somewhere into here. And you're going to get a cold air feed into all of this energy coming down. Now, so this pattern right here, what I'm looking at right here, to me, this screams more of kind of a Ohio Valley, almost Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, dare I say, Northeast kind of setup. Tall spiking ridge. This allows energy to kind of dive down here, nosedive, get strong, and then begin to dig down and then start to affect areas. And when they start to dig, they get stronger, becomes a stronger storm system. All right, and you see this blue extending all the way into the northern sections of the northern hemisphere. This indicates a cross-polar flow. You're going to get a cold air. Now, it's going to take time for this to reflect to the surface, but it's coming. Now, you go all the way out to 360 hours out. You see this blue down here extending into the picture? That is what I think could be what could deliver something maybe further south, if I had to take a guess. I'll talk to you about why here in a second. But as far as those storm systems that I'm watching as the pattern transitions, here's the European ensemble indicating a pretty strong signal about midway next week for a storm system, and that could be the storm system that actually affects California, cutting across the Rockies, and there it is. You know, it indicates 2 lows, but it'll probably just be 1, more than likely. And you got a system that's kind of cutting across the middle of the country, and I would say more so the northern plains. It looks like it's going to cut almost across maybe like the northern plains and the north central U.S. And there it is. There's that symbol for that low. That placement of that low would be too warm for any kind of winter weather for most of the Great Lakes region. This could be a little bit further south. But this is still has the patterns kind of coming in place. And then as we get about 10 days out, you see just kind of the blues over this area. That indicates lower pressure, which indicates probably some sort of storm system. And then you see how it kind of gets bluer into here. That indicates a higher chance for lower pressure. And there it is. There's that storm signal right here, 11, 12 days out for the Northeast. And there it is. There's the low. It pops up right here. I know this is far out, 288 hours out. But there's that signal for lower pressure right here off the coast of to the Northeast in the Mid-Atlantic. That to me tells me, hey, watch mid-February if you're in those areas. Now, for my folks in the South, we extend this a little bit further, and we start to get, into the 18th, into the 20s in February. What I'm watching here is still a continued cold air feed, okay? And even though this blue disappears down here, there's still, up here, there's still a cold air feed coming in. This is where it gets confusing. You're still getting a ridge, let's move this a little bit further. You're still getting a ridge up here, and you're still getting a cold air feed down here, even though, you're seeing warmer colors. Cold air feed down here. But if you notice these blues, they're kind of further south now. So this indicates that lows aren't really cutting across this region anymore. Low pressures could be cutting across this region now. And with a cold air feed going, you still got a signal for a ridge up into this region, energy shooting down, and you got a signal now for energy probably going to the southern stream. You got to watch further south at that point, okay? And that signal kind of remains. It just remains there. It remains in place. That's what we have to watch out for. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all. I should have a video tonight. There's a chance I might not. But I hope that helps you guys. We'll continue to pump out the information. God bless all y'all, and have a great Friday.